to the She's a 10 times 5 show with hosts Laurie Jabbar and Emmick. We're bringing public figures, subject matter experts, and other accomplished guests to the Studio 50 table to serve you up the best tips, tricks, and key takeaways that all us midlifers want to know about. Okay, time to join us for some times 5 fun. Let's go. Hey everyone, welcome to She's a 10 times 5 Zequat. All right, we've got a very special guest, but first, let's introduce our recurring partners in crime. We've got the life coach, Jay Shetty certified. Why do I fumble? It's always you, Randi. It's always you.
We don't have to announce that it's a Jay Shetty certification either. You can just say Randi Crawford coaching. That's it.
I'm trying to give you some credibility and some Jay Shetty shout out.
Okay.
Life coach, Randi Crawford.
Hello.
Hello in the yellow box. And we've got the editor-in-chief of our favorite Ask Us Beauty magazine, Michelle Emmick.
Hello, ladies.
Hello. And our very special guest, which if you're watching this, you will be blown away because she is a 10 times 5. I thought she was a 10 times 3, if that, is Yvette Bodden. And she is the author, I have it right here, of the book, A Journey to Becoming the Best Self. It's an awesome read. And she has a magnificent platform that she has developed for all of us empowered ladies called Woman Awakened. Welcome, Yvette.
Hi, Laurie. Hi, Randi. Hi, Michelle. Thank you all so much. I'm super excited to be here. Laurie, I'm going to kill your thunder. It's Bodden.
Oh, God. See, I told you.
She can't help herself.
And the platform is Awakened Woman.
She got that. Jeez.
Do you know what?
But I love you. I'm a fan.
Thank you. You know, I think it's almost become expected that my intro is a hairball of mistakes. So,
aren't we
now
all?
You're part of the club.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Yeah, you're part of the club. And you know, it's kind of funny because I wore my hair in a high pony just because I thought I was going to try to achieve a more youthful look for you. So, you know, everything's thrown out the window. So let's talk your book. And you've got Randi, who's developing her book right now. You got me, who's in the process of writing a book. And Michelle has 2 books. Let's talk about it and the impetus for you doing it. And it's a really great kind of journey and lessons of not just going through a divorce. And a lot of women who are 10 times 5s, especially empty nesters, or as I call them, freebirds, are contemplating where they stand with their marriage. So I think this is a very good topic for our audience, but also kind of that sense of loss, which I think, you know, a lot of us midlife women go through, and we grapple with how to process that and heal and go through that journey. So platform's yours. Let's go.
Oh, now she put me on the spot.
Yeah.
Well, it's funny, and I always say this, I promise you. The book wrote me, and I was going through this sort of identity crisis in my marriage. I was a mother, I was a wife, and Yvette, the woman, completely lost. I didn't know who she was. I couldn't connect with her. And this started sort of like an exploratory phase. I got myself into therapy, and there was nothing wrong with, him or I loved being a mother and I loved being a wife, but I felt there was something missing. So I go to therapy, and of course all my stuff comes out. And as I'm going through this journey, it's not that I'm letting go of pieces of who I am, but I'm sort of reconnecting with the woman, and the woman becomes stronger, becomes more independent, and that does sort of just create cracks in my marriage. And as I'm going through this entire process of years, I, it wasn't basically my husband and I disagreed on you know, who I should be. I wanted to be Yvette, but all of Yvette, not just, the bits and pieces. And, we kind of agreed to disagreed. I was not, at the end of that journey, I was not the woman that he married. And we decided that the compatibility was no longer there. He wanted, you know, the young girl he met. And at the core, I was the same person, but I had been going through my own evolution during all this. Um, so the divorce triggered a depression. As you read, it was pretty debilitating. And as I was going through this process, I thought about all the women and men who were going through a loss, whether it was a loss of a life they had, caused by divorce or separation, whether it was someone, they lost in their lives, whatever the loss was. And I, not everyone has the resources to go to therapy. Not everyone has the resources to go to counseling. So I started writing a book, and it was more like a journal at the time, and it became this book. And it's like the book wrote me, and I kept writing and writing, and I realized that there's a lot of women out there, not just in the US and the world, who need help. And I thought that my story could inspire someone else. Why not?
Yeah. Okay, I'm going to flip it over to you, Randi, because we've talked about this, and you have a personal connection with the divorce scenario, right? I think when you get to midlife, I think there is an awakening that happens where, and especially when your children are no longer under your roof, where you start to really evaluate who you are, what your needs are, because I do think that they change, and you have to really self-evaluate what you want and who you want to be. What's your thoughts on this, Randi?
Well, so I actually texted said person prior to the call and said, can I use names? And she said, please don't. But somebody very close to me that's a 10 times 5, really a 10 times 8, I'm talking 80, just now went through a very, very traumatic divorce. And, it came out of left field, and it shocked everyone. And this person had truly been married since she was 19 years old. So was married for about 20 years, got divorced, within a year was remarried, and is now about to turn 80. And it's a very different, it's debilitating. And the really interesting part about this is everybody in her life was able to look at her and say, it's your time now. Like, you are such a young person. She truly is so active. She does more than I do. You're so active, and and no one's now telling you what to do and when they want dinner on all that stuff. You know what I mean? It's like you can live your life. And obviously it takes the person that's going through it time to wrap their brain around that. And that, like you said, Yvette, like I don't not use the word depression right now, but I think it's more of like the shock factor right now, and the being alone, and it's just so different. But all of a sudden, she's really starting to, like you said, go to those meetups and go to wine things with women and just do all these different things that she had never, ever done before, especially when you have an 80-year-old they're very old school, and I don't want to say it's like all about the man, but it is. I mean, this person always had dinner on the table, and, the ironing and the cooking and all of that stuff. And it's like, now she's really discovering this parts of herself that are incredible. It's going to take time, but it's a really fascinating to watch it from the outside.
I love that. I think when we're in this bubble, we live for the people that we love. And that means caring for them, nurturing them. It's almost like innate. And you sort of get to a point where, especially when your children leave, that you sort of ask yourself, well, who am I? What do I like? What do I like to do? What do I like to eat? What does my life mean, on my own? Thank you for sharing that story. That's a beautiful story. I mean, it's
Ish.
funny. Well, it's no. It's funny because when you think of divorce, it is sad, or it can be. But at the same time, when you hear on the other side of that coin how people can flourish and grow and sort of just, meet this other person that they didn't even realize was there, I think it's a beautiful thing.
No,
All
I
right.
agree with you. I completely concur. You now are able to not, you're so used to caring for others. And now it's like you are going to care for yourself. What do I like? Do I like drinking wine at night? Don't I? Do I want to make a whole meal every night? Don't. You're right. There's so many things to discover. True.
All right, I'm going to quote a
It's
different book. It's called The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo. It's a great read, by the
I
way.
have that in my on my reading list.
Yeah, it's fantastic. It's titillating. It's all of that. But she had a really great perspective on marriage, which is my marriage failed, but I didn't fail at like love. And so sometimes marriages just don't find the finish line, right? Okay, Michelle, I'm gonna ask you this question because I think it segues into Yvette's platform, which is all about women's empowerment. And you've got a great blog. I went in and read about the gaslighting. I loved it. We have talked about this over and over about women and their identities. And when we are too enmeshed with a spouse or our children, where we run into a very slippery slope, and that's not always easy, right? Let's talk about that because I think you, through both the magazine and now doing this podcast, you have a very good perspective on that.
Yeah, I think it's so important as women to carve out time for yourself and to always be asking yourself the questions. What do I enjoy? What excites me? How can I be the best, wife or mother, but still filling my cup? Right. And I think it's very easy to fall into those traditional roles, but you have to constantly be evaluating. And then I always say, looking at your life in all different aspects and making sure that you're, feeding yourself. What do you need? You got to feed your soul, because you can't be the best person that you want to be if you're not driving in all aspects of life, mentally, emotionally, physically. Are you carving time to work out? Are you carving time to, and just think a lot of times we get so caught up. We don't stop to ask ourselves, what do we want? And it's so important.
Amen to that. Yeah. And it's interesting because I was talking to a friend who just dropped off, excuse me, her last child at college. And there also is this dynamic that occurs where I think men get, insecure and kind of want us to be their pillar of identity as well. And that's very dangerous because if you are now taking on the burden of the whole social ecosystem and environment within the house and that kind of thing, that's a huge burden. It's almost like having another kid, right? Yeah. Okay.
Well, he needs to be asking himself those questions too.
Well,
Like,
yeah, it's true. And I had the discussion with my husband. It's like, I told him, I go, God, these are the things that I want to be doing. And you don't have to do them with me, but you have to support me doing them. And I think a lot of times we're afraid to have those discussions with our partners, especially
yeah,
if you've been married over a couple decades. You kind of get on that lane and it's hard to kind of take a left turn sometimes.
I
Okay.
think that's such great advice, because you do have to, it's okay to have different passions and projects and things that you like. You don't have to, find one or two things that you like to do together, but have your own identity,
But I think really quick, I want to make this point. When I got married, I just and I think it's because that's what I saw growing up. I thought that my likes, that my friends had to match, my husband's. We had the same friend, the couple friends, and we did, the same things together. And I don't think it has to be that way. I think separate interests is actually healthy. Keeping your own friends is actually healthy because as women, I've realized that it's one thing to talk to my partner or, my husband about something totally different when I talk to my girlfriends. So I think that's important, even though you have this, sort of union and together life, you also need to have separate lives to a degree, or at least have separate interests.
And like in your book said, and I was fully into that, a little separate bank, a little stash.
Oh yeah.
I
My
used
mom taught me that when I was 14.
to laugh when I read that because having met with thousands of women over my career, and I used to hear those stories. They'd be like, I came home and all the money was out of the bank account. This and that. So I always used to say, keep a little, keep some funds for yourself, ladies.
Yeah. I always say to my husband, what's mine is mine. What's yours is mine. I'm just kidding.
That's
Okay,
right.
let's talk awakened woman. Ding, ding. I nailed
Thank
it.
you.
And Randi, I think you're going to have a lot of good things to say about this too, because what Randi does is she works with a lot of young adult women and also older women that have young adult female children. So let's talk about the platform. And then Randi, I want you to weigh in on, your thoughts as well.
Yeah, I'm really excited to hear about it.
So I'm not sure if you had a chance to look it over, but Awakened Woman is the platform that I created during the writing of the book. And I've written I think I'm over 500 articles now. And it literally has to do with everything that we go through as women. You know, whether or not to have a child, infidelity, emotional affairs versus, physical affairs. Gosh, what else? Being a mother, losing your identity, divorce, finance. I mean, literally just everything that I have gone through, or that my friends have gone through. I like to write about dating. What are my dating mantras? Gaslighting, which is something that I guess I have been experiencing, over the course of years, and I didn't even know. Now it's called gaslighting, but um, just literally everything that you can think of. And then during the pandemic, I started this series called the Empowerment Series. I couldn't really just focus on the stories because I wasn't seeing my friends. We weren't having these conversations. So I began the Empowerment Series, which is a focus on just the stories of women, that we see on TV, that are CEOs, that are what we would classify as she's got it all. But the thing about the series is that I don't write about their careers or the success in their life. I want a personal piece of their journey that our audience can connect with. For example, I had a CEO who she has it all, by our definition, but her journey started with being raped at 9 years old, and she had to sort of get out of that trauma to arrive where she is today. I have, one actress who spoke to me about her battle with cancer, and how her faith has gotten her out. There's just so many stories out there, and I want women to understand that we can come from different backgrounds, different ethnic groups, different, socioeconomic statuses, but at the end of the day, we're all women, and our stories connect. There is, overlap in some way, shape, or form. So this is a place where women can come to and feel like their stories, they're being seen, they're being heard, maybe not theirs per se, but someone else's who they can connect with. That was the short form of the
Love
short
it.
description.
Well, I love what you said. And but one thing that struck me, Yvette, about what you said is you interviewed that one woman, and I wanted to write it down because I forget things as quickly as I hear them. I'm sorry, I'm bad brain these days. But see, it's interesting when you said she seemingly has it all, right? Because I feel like, how do we define what having it all is? I don't think that a lot of our young people, I mean, right now, what is thrown in their faces, and what all the girls collectively that I work with, they all like, it's materialistic stuff, man. It's money. It's like it's enhancing their bodies and their faces, and it's living these lives of social media influencers that are so not real. And is that having it all, you know, and is that in conflict with, you're like a tomboy girly and you don't want to go out and, you know what I mean, spend $500 on a meal, but you want to go out and spend $500 going to the US Open to watch the Fritz Djokovic match tonight. You know, what do we have to help people and these young people really figure out what does having it all really mean? You know, because today I would say that we're all defining that by, well, you have money and you can get plastic surgery and you can travel around the world and you can have your private plane. It's such bullshit. That's not real. It's not reality. And that is what scares me a lot. That scares me a lot.
I think this goes so far back, because when I think about my own experience, I wanted it all. I wanted the perfect husband, the perfect wedding, the white picket fence and the dog. I wanted all that. And when I look back, we can go as far back as, Cinderella and Disney. And what were we seeing? We were seeing these, happily ever afters. And even even when you find that, and I don't like to call it perfect person, even when we find that right person for us, it's work, man. It's relationships are, whether it's a marriage or long-term relationships, they're hard. They take work. It's not that meet the perfect guy and he's tall, dark, and handsome and has, you know, very successful. It's just, it's all made up. It's all a fantasy. And I'm not saying there are not good things about it, but what we've seen growing up, those are fantasies. It's not real life. So I think it goes way, it's way before social media. I mean, that's why we have the wedding industry is what, like $1 billion industry, or probably
Yeah.
more, because we buy into these fantasies.
Yeah, my perspective is I do think social media has put gasoline on the fire in a major way, especially for our younger generations. I really do. But I also think we have an obligation as women, especially 10 times 5, to pull the cover away from perfection and
Yeah.
almost celebrate imperfections and laughing at ourselves and being vulnerable, right? And you're absolutely right, Yvette. Like, relationships take work, and that includes friendships. Especially as we get older, you start to tighten your circles because your tolerance level for bullshit becomes less and less because time is scarce. It's a currency. So, Michelle, what's your thoughts on this?
Yeah, I mean, it's so true. I mean, I think growing up, you're so excited. It's like, oh, getting engaged, right? It's like get engaged, get a boyfriend, then get engaged, and then get married, then have kids. But like it's more about the event than it is the journey that it takes to get there. Like, we're so focused on, say yes to the dress and, the venue, and then the photos come out and look at how perfect everything is, when we know that's not at all, that's not the important part. So I do think with age comes wisdom, and you start to realize that, this stuff I want. For example, when people get married, they tend to invite all of their uncles, cousins, aunts. When the chips fall, when the relationship gets hard, who's there? The people that should be celebrating that event with you should be the people that you're able to call and say, hey, look, we're having some trouble, we need help. We need somebody to talk through this relationship, because relationships are hard, but we're so so much is pushed on the event. And so that's the thing, like when you see these weddings, and not to take away, because I get it, people want the big event, but you start seeing the 200, 300, 400 people, it's more about that than it is about the union. So not to say not to have a great party and celebrate and invite all those, but really take inventory of who the people are. Are these people that are important in our lives? Are they going to be there to support this union? If the answer is yes, great. If they're not, maybe you need to think about spending that $200 on the plate.
I think one of the first things I remember when I was writing the book that I reflected on was, when the party's over, for me, is this the partner that I want to be with? Like, is this the person that, you know, or the friends or the circle that I want to be surrounded with? And what is it they say? Hindsight is 2020. But you're right. It's important to evaluate that. But when you're in that euphoria, I can see how it's really hard to do.
Absolutely. And that's the thing. I think it's just, again, you don't see those things until you start to get older. And then obviously years into a relationship, you can kind of reflect, so it's like finding that balance. You don't want to dim the light to anyone's excitement and things, because we get it, it's like, oh, we're engaged. And, but there's so much emphasis. That's why I always tell, especially with brides, I'm always like, please stop and enjoy the day, enjoy the moment. Don't worry about that the flowers didn't come out properly, or some things, because there's always going to be those things, and that's in anything in life. But I think just since we're relating it to marriage.
Well, I mean, even if we were to take it away from marriage, and I agree with everything you're saying, but people, I'm always going to come back to social media and how that is so deleterious on the mindset of these young people, because maybe you're right, maybe you're right. Actually, yes, Disney, we all saw the Disney princess. We all wanted the happily ever after. We all wanted the whole concept of the fairy tale wedding. But today we're seeing these fairy tale weddings. I mean, we're seeing the announcement of the babies. And did you read the other day that there was a birth announcement and the pilot of the plane died dropping the pink? Come on, stop with these freaking announcements. It's about the baby, not about having such an epic, we're going to tell the whole world what we're doing. But that's who we have become. It's the new standard.
Yes, we're a country of one-uppers.
Yeah.
Okay, so let me throw this turd in the punch bowl to all of what you're saying. I think we all should still want the happily ever after. It's just, we need to be realistic on what that looks like, and it changes repeatedly over time. What the happily ever after when you're 25 is way different than when you're 40.
Oh my God.
Right?
That's a really good point, because, to Michelle and Laurie's point, I'll be honest, I still want that happily ever after. It just looks different.
Yeah. Well, and I think the other thing with regard,
Laurie, I agree with the happily ever after. Totally.
Yeah. I think the other thing too, that we as women, we get on this treadmill and it's really hard to slow it down and stop it, especially, is I think we take on the burden that our relationships should be about our kids, and we stay married because of kids and because of optics, and we're so shit scared that we'll upset that turnip truck that we stay in these and sometimes very toxic marriages just to keep the kids happy and to keep the appearances looking solid. And I think social media is huge with that. I can't tell you, there's women that you get on the phone with them, and sometimes I feel like I'm a really good marriage counselor, and I will spend 45 minutes on the phone with someone, and then 3 days later I see on their social media that they post how wonderful their husband was and the love of their life, and I'm just like, what the fuck is going on here, right?
Right. Fake book.
That peer, what is it? Peer pressure. You just, I
was going to say, we all know, I mean, social media is it's fake all around. So people, and it's a highlight reel. So people are only putting the positives. No one's putting out there, my husband and I have just been fighting, and it's more like, oh, I love him. We've been. So I think it is always an interesting, social media is just messy.
But that's the thing. We all know it's bullshit. We all know that when we're reading it, that it's the highlight reel. But when your mind is, when that's what you're doing every single day, and you're constantly seeing these images of these perfect families, the kids are all D1 athletes at school, everything is perfect and shiny and great, and you keep seeing it over and over, it definitely messes with your head. It messes with your head as a young person. It messes with the head of an adult. Because if you're the adult and your kid hasn't done these things, you're like, you feel like that is on you. And if your kid is like the star of the football team, you somehow feel like that is because of you too. It's like, slow your roll, people. You're not a failure if your kid is not the quarterback at XYZ. You're also not the reason that, you're part of the reason. But we believe that what we put out there, that's that's just who we are. And then if we go dark, something must be up.
Maybe
It's
that's why
correct.
people put it, maybe that's why people put it out there. Maybe they put it out there for their own psyche, like, hey, let me just keep
Oh,
doing this.
100%.
Like
Because
if
you're
it all looks good, I'm gonna
you're
start
looking
believing.
for the comments. I mean, the people that post just the accolades of their kids, it gives them validation. And, that's why, back to my point, I think it's so important, especially, people that have, like you said, hindsight 2020 event. I call it,
Yeah.
My rearview mirror and road behind me, that I almost think we have an obligation to encourage people to know that it's messy and it's hard and we fail a lot and our kids fail, and that's okay. I mean, look, I have adult kids. Randy, you do too, and Yvette as well. You still have your 11-year-old. We love Carson. We live
Yeah,
vicariously through Carson. But the point is that parenting doesn't go away. It just gets harder because the issues get more complex, and our ability to intervene is the window shrinks so much, right?
I think that's one of the things that I try to do, and obviously I want to do it. I want to have that delicate balance. I don't want to put all my mess out there, but I do want people to know not every day is great. Sometimes I wake up and I have the blues and I have to literally push myself to, sort of get over that hump, and every day is not great, and it's okay to not be okay. So I try to sort of share those moments because, you know, I think when you do, people feel less alone. People feel like maybe they can be vulnerable too. And life is shitty sometimes. Life
Yeah.
is messy. It's complicated, and there is no perfect, we don't live in nirvana. I mean, come on. We have to be real about it, I think. So I try to do that a little bit. Just not, not making my social media a therapy session. That I won't do.
Yeah. Okay, Randy, I'm going to ask you this question, and then we'll segue here. I think a lot of times we make the mistake, and I do it too. She's a 10 times 5. And, even before we hit record, Yvette, like I mentioned, I thought that you were a lot younger than you are. And I thought, okay, how do we make this relatable? Right. I think we've run into the trap of thinking that if we're a 10 times 4, 5, even 6, that somehow we can't relate to the younger generations. And Randy, I'd love to get your take on this since you talk to so many young women. I think it's even more invaluable that we reach out to that generation, because I do think that they want to hear from us. I mean, I've been on walks with young women in their 20s, and they really get a lot of value out of hearing my opinion. What are your thoughts?
Well, so I have the exact opposite feeling. I get so much out of being with the young people. I do, as a coach, you're taught to listen and not to do the talking. And also when I work my retail job on the weekends, I'm with all young girls. And man, they are very, very, very different than us. They were raised completely differently. And so when you step back and you get their perspective, and they love mine too. So it does go both ways. But when I'm with them, I learn a lot. They look at things with a completely different lens. Laurie, it's wild.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
I'm going to throw a curveball at you guys. And this has been a hot topic. If you lean into the news and the upcoming election, we're not going to get political here. This topic of age has become a thing. And the reason being is what we're seeing is people in leadership positions now. With Nikki Haley's case and with the news, a lot of it's about our Capitol Hill people, but it also goes back to corporate America. I want to get your thoughts, and I'll go around the horn on this with regards to, I'm really confused and I'm really disheartened to some degree about how we're so age heavy in certain leadership positions. And I'm curious as to why the younger generation is tolerating that, and why people are being very self-absorbed and not stepping aside and paving the way and mentoring our younger generations to assume the seats at the table. I'll start with you, Randy.
Oh, okay. Because I just have such a theory on this, because you know how much I can't stand remote work. And we have a lot of America that still does remote work for their
Yep.
employees, which I'm okay with hybrid, even going a couple days a week. But when you have all these large companies that are going remote and you never have physical presence in an office where, Laurie, let's say you're my employer, I want to get there before you. I want you to see me at my desk when you walk in the door, and I want you to see me at my desk when you leave at the end of the day. We don't have that anymore. So we've completely lost that. I'm trying to impress the boss because I want to move up in the company. And what we have is a very different way that these kids look at their jobs. So to me, I 100% think that they definitely, that at a certain age, you need to step aside and bring in and let these new thinkers think and bring in new, fresh ideas. But none of that is going to happen until we are back in the office. It's never going to be normal again, in my opinion.
Okay, but what about all our political leaders that literally we're seeing on TV and they're, just recently incapacitated right in front of our very eyes? And I'm just,
well, I think the political one is just right there in front of us. I mean, that's just such an obvious.
That's a microcosm of what happens across a lot of leadership positions. I mean, if you look at public companies and you look at these board of directors, I'm telling you, it's a lot of aged people. Now, I'm not saying they don't have anything to offer or whatnot. I guess what I'm really concerned about, and then I'm gonna give it to you, Yvette, is why our younger generations aren't demanding more. Why we're sitting back and allowing this to happen. And I think Nikki Haley said it best. I think she's kind of positioning this as the younger generation should be asking for more and should be demanding for more accountability, let's put it that way, right? But also that it's kind of self-centered and selfish for some of these people to continually sit at the table when they obviously need to be put out to pasture. Okay, Yvette, what are your thoughts?
Because Laurie, a lot of people, and I'm not speaking for all of them, so I wouldn't want to offend any young people, but what I am learning from everybody that I work with in person and the coaching is they have a very different expectation of work than we did. Meaning, when I started a public healthcare company, I think I worked 7 days in a row for a year straight and I'm not saying that to brag, and I'm not saying, oh, I'm so proud of it. It was the culture. You just wanted to work to make something happen. Today, it's a very different culture. It's a work-life balance.
But Randi, these young people have the ability to vote. You could vote on board of directors. I mean, that's the problem I'm having is why isn't anyone leaning in? And I think it goes way beyond just the dynamics within the office. I think it's leadership in general. And I think we have this chasm of people holding on to the power versus not, it used to be that there was a systemic and, kind of a movement where we would mentor people and we would put them in the position.
Laurie, we were in person because I was with you in person and I wanted to get ahead. That's not what's happening today. You know what they want today? They want a remote job where then they can just travel all around the world. You never, as my boss, have to know that I could be taking this call from Ibiza right now. That's more important to them than saying, you know what, Laurie, I think Laurie's starting to lose her marbles. We need to get rid of Laurie. They don't give a crap.
I'm not mad at it. I want to be in Ibiza.
Okay,
yeah.
right?
Okay, Yvette, what's your thoughts on this?
Oof.
I know I'm putting you kind of in the hot seat.
Yes, you are. This is my opinion. I think we still live in a patriarchal society. I think there is still somewhat of a perception that with old age or older age, sorry, comes wisdom. And I think that people are being left in certain positions because, of power, because, they may be smarter, wiser, they may have a vast amount of experience, and to a degree younger people are seen as maybe less, not less valuable, but maybe not as, I don't want to say not as smart, This is a tough
Hey,
question.
let me throw this at you. This is what I think, and this is what troubles me on this. Is one, I think that we have created a we've given people a lot of power and they don't want to lose it, and it's self-serving. But more importantly, I think we're fucking lazy. And I would love to have a call to action of people that and young people. So if you don't exercise your voice or your vote or whatever the case may be, I don't want to hear you complaining about the world we live in and how do you get yours? We hear that all the time. Like, well, excuses and the victim mentality. I really want to see people leaning in. We're all seeing it, but instead of putting our heads in the sand like ostriches, is to do something about it. And I am troubled that a lot of, and I'm just saying like 30-year-olds that can make a difference, that have enough wisdom and experience, that have been out in the world long enough where they should be influencing some of what's going on. Michelle, what do you say?
Yeah, I mean, yes to all of that. I think there's a little bit of everything. I think people have a lot of stuff going on in their lives. Some people can't even,
Yeah,
can't,
we do.
can't put, whether it's can't put food on the table, whatever the situation. I think people have got a lot going on. It's not a priority, although it should be, but they don't fully understand that. So, I agree with you 100%. And I think, Randi, what you were saying, like the in-person, I love when we collaborate. So like the fact that you work with young people and you're able to learn and they learn from you, that's beautiful. Like that's the way it should be. We need more of that. When you're talking about, when we go into politics, I mean, it's quite evident that, Mitch and Diane need to retire and there's a few others. We all see it, but yeah, they don't want to let go of that power. Obviously, there's probably a lot of things tied to it that we don't know, maybe don't want to.
I don't even think they know at this point.
Yeah, it's sad. I mean, I think we're watching this and we're all like, what's going on? But then the question becomes like, how many are really watching it? Like, I always find those shows fun where they go out on the street and they ask people, like people can't even answer the most basic questions when it comes to things going on in our government and the world we live in. So I'm not surprised how we fix that. I mean, I do think we need more young people involved. There's no question. Because the people that are sitting in the patriarchal society, absolutely. I mean, go to any boardroom, go look at the board of advisors at any big company. Tell me what you see. I know what I'm going to see.
Okay, Yvette, you have your call to action. I think this is something you need to blog about in a way that keeps you out of the political side, but
Exactly.
She's
No
like,
thanks.
yeah, no, thank you.
No thanks.
I think it's an important topic, and I think there is a call to action here, and I would love for more people to exercise their vote and encourage the younger generations to kind of get in the arena here. Like,
But there's so many layers of, I don't want to say shit, but of just crap. Because if you look at wasn't, I don't want to say his name, but wasn't this politician that looked, because I've seen the video, he looked incapacitated.
yeah, Mitch
Whether
McConnell.
it was,
Yes, Mitch McConnell.
I don't want to say his name, but wasn't he cleared medically afterwards?
Okay, but you know what? Like, who can't get a clearance? I mean, you can get
Athletes
anybody
do it
to
all the
sign up
time.
on anything.
Yeah.
We
Money
saw it.
talks. Yeah.
So there's just layers and layers of, all this going on, and no one's taking accountability. So where do we begin?
Yeah, it's sad, right?
That's
It's
the
thing
problem.
the thing that bothers me, I want to say that too, is these people have let's just go into the politics side, but they've spent years serving in government. And it's sad to me that this is how they're going to go out, because whether you like them, whatever side of the aisle you're on, who cares? But they obviously have they put their time in. It's time to go, find some hobbies, do something fun, because it's embarrassing. And I don't know why more people aren't speaking out on it.
Well, Laurie, okay, I agree with you, Michelle, but there's, if I were to take it away, Yvette, to make you happy from the political side and go back to the corporate side. There's so much inequity between the haves and the have-nots right now. I mean, look what's going on with the writer's strike and with Hollywood. You know, while I know that people are like, boo-hoo, you know, the Matt Damons of the world, the Matt Damons are fighting for the not Matt Damons so that they can get health insurance and so that they can sustain a family life, because the haves, the president of the corporations, are making millions and millions and millions of dollars, and everyone else is down here. So, and this goes to sports. Same thing with the people who own the sports teams. And now you have a football team with 80 people. There's so much inequity across the board that you have people that are just, I like to say in the coaching world, there's like this whole feeling of learned helplessness. Like, what the hell can I do? You know what I mean? I'm a little guy. I'm not the guy making 100 million a year. It's gotten huge, the gap. And there's a lot of people that are young that are like, I'm dipping. Fuck it. I'm going to Ibiza.
Right. And
Well,
again,
if you go to Ibiza, I'm not feeling bad for you.
well, they'll snap some photos of Ibiza and their time there, and then they'll get, you know, paid to be an influencer, and
Yeah.
you know.
Well, yeah. I think the point I'm just trying to make is I think I mean, to answer your question, Yvette, I think what we can do is continuously be curious and ask questions and challenge others, and, you know, encourage people to kind of get in the game a little bit more. Yeah, with all of the barriers. And I know there is a lot. I'm not like saying that there's not. There are. And sometimes you do feel helpless in your own little world, but anyway.
Well, I think it's because you care. We all care, right? So that's not a bad thing.
Okay, I'm going to phone a friend. So I'm going to tell you, and Yvette, you've been a gamer. Thank you for taking me on. I tend to do this when I get a pickle up my ass. I like to throw it in the quad and see what I get back. I have a friend, and you're going to love this, Yvette. Okay. She is a cross between Cliff Clavin and MacGyver. I'm encouraging her, and you may want to feature her on your platform, to write a book on life hacks. It's almost uncanny. And I'll give you an example. I thought I had gout. I know, right? The old man's disease that eats pate and has scotches every night. But I woke up with a sore toe and I wasn't really sure. And so she says, oh, take a tart cherry pill. Sure as shit, gone. Okay, so we're going to call her. She's going to give us a life hack.
Hello.
Can you hear Kel? Can
Yes.
you guys? Okay. All right, Kelly, we have you in the quad with Randi, Michelle, and our special guest, Yvette, who is all about women, and she's been amazing. What's the life hack you want to give to us?
Well, after driving 9 hours to Reno yesterday, my car is filled with bugs, and most people don't know how to get them all off. But my life hack is you take bounce sheets, you wet them, and you just rub right into the front of your car, and your bugs come right off.
Wow.
Did not know that.
I got a massive fly problem because of our humidity. You got one for that?
Do I know how to fix that? No.
Okay. All right.
I don't want to know that. Yes,
Okay.
all done.
Okay. And you know what? I'm going to caveat that because you also taught me, I think it was at a baseball tournament, that if you rub your body and skin with bounce sheets, it's like a natural repellent for mosquitoes, correct?
You are absolutely correct. It also puts a film on your shower so they won't get all soap scummy.
Okay.
Yep. Bounce
Oh.
stuff.
All right. Hey, that was brilliant. Thank you very much, and enjoy Reno.
You too.
Okay. Bye.
Bye, ladies.
Bye.
That was kind of invaluable.
Well, that was great because my daughter gets, anytime she goes outside, she'll come back and be like, Mom, I have 12 bug bites. I'm like, the bugs love you. You're so sweet.
It really does work. You take those bounce,
I'm going to be buying that. Absolutely.
and that doesn't smell bad. You know, if you use like off, it's just disgusting. So, okay, Yvette, thank you so much for being with you. We're going to go round the horn with a rule to live by. But first, tell everyone where they can find you.
So it's www.awakened-woman.com, across social media as Woman Awakens. Laurie, that's for you.
Very much.
you know, my book is at Amazon, Barnes and Noble. It was just released on Kindle. It's called A Journey to Becoming the Best Self, and I am working on a new book, and I'm just about finished, so I'm so excited.
Oh,
But
yeah.
it's kind of saucy, and it's very different from the memoir. Obviously, it's not about me. So
Sounds like something I need to read, man. That's saucy. Okay, and Randy, tell everyone where they can find your cute self, your little powerhouse sledgehammer self.
Randy with an I, Randi Crawford coaching.com.
Or as Laurie would say, consulting.
As Laurie would say.
Yes.
Okay, and then Michelle, you just dropped a beautiful new Ask Us Beauty magazine featuring the cover of Miranda Lambert. Where can
Yep.
they find you and the publication?
AskUsBeautyMagazine.com.
Yeah, baby. It's a
Yes.
great issue. You guys need to lean into that. Okay, I'm going to start with you, Randy. What is your rule to live by?
Gosh, you caught me off guard. I wasn't thinking of that this week. So now my brain is like flooding with 8 million things. So if I were to just keep this really, really light, and we always do a lot of things about like healthiness and whatever. I don't know if I've ever made this a rule to live by, but for me, it is all about the electric toothbrush. It has changed my life. Literally, the electric toothbrush. I wish every dentist would tell every patient, don't waste your time with the soft bristle. Don't waste your time spending like every 3 months with a new brush. Get an electric toothbrush and you will literally feel like you just left the dentist office every time you brush your teeth. And I would like to add, it's so long, the process, that you can do your morning affirmations, intentions, or whatever way that you want to start your day. Truly life-changing.
All right, I've been using mine for like 20 years.
You have?
How did you just now hear about this?
I don't know.
Okay. All right, Michelle, what you got, babe?
Okay, so yesterday I was cleaning my closet and I was like, oh my God, I forgot I had these things. And it made me laugh because everything comes back in style. So like I just heard they're like skinny jeans are out. I was like, what? Those aren't in anymore. So I'm not like big into like everything but what I do know and I see is when I see the styles come in, I'm like, we wore that in high school. So now I saw this from back in the 90s. We were big on the blazers. Do you remember we wore the blazer with the jeans and the thick like Doc Martens? Like that's all back in. So my rule to live by is like keep the good stuff. Like don't get rid of it because it'll just come back around in another 10 years.
Well, it's so funny you say that because actually I was going on my friend's boat for Labor Day and I was kind of going through my closet thinking, what can I wear? And I came across a really, really old Burberry, the plaid shirt. Yeah. And I'm like, wow, it was like I hadn't worn it for like 15 years. I mean, it's
comes back. I'm telling you, just comes.
I got more compliments by wearing that damn shirt than I've gotten in things I've worn for about 2 months.
Right, keep the good stuff because even if it goes out of style, it's gonna come back around.
Burberry is never going out of style.
Yeah, Burberry never goes out of style.
Because it's British. And it's,
yeah.
Thing. You want to hear mine?
Yeah, let me hear yours.
It's actually an Audrey Hepburn quote, so I got to give credit where credit's due. She's just the bomb. It's Paris is never a bad idea.
Oh, I was just there in June. Oh.
So you want to end on that?
Okay. I would say, and I'm gonna get all woo-woo, but never compromise your self-worth. I think oftentimes we, and this goes back to what we were talking about. We compromise who we are, what we think, what we believe, what we want. And I say, screw it. Do you. And I know that's easier said than done. But just never compromise your self-worth, who you are, your needs, because when it comes down to, happiness, finding that happiness, it's going to start with you. So you want to make sure that your needs are met first before you try and meet everyone else's needs. So I'll end
Amen.
with that.
That's a good one to end on. All right. I love it. Okay, lady.
Thank you, guys. Thank you, Laurie. Thank you, Michelle. Thank you, Randy, for having me.
You bet.
Absolutely.
And thank you to Randy for always, I love this. Always spicy. Love it. Love it.
You ask questions that make me like, oh,
I know. Yeah. Okay. And thank you, listeners and or viewers. We'll catch you next time. Adios.
bye.
Bye.
Follow us on Instagram at She's a 10 times 5. You can click on the link in our bio to listen to all of our previous episodes, as well as check out our live video interviews over our YouTube channel. You can also find us on Apple, Spotify, iHeart, pretty much wherever else you decide to listen to your favorite podcast. Don't forget to hit subscribe.